Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and in this video I'm going to show you how easy it is to create mitered borders on your quilt. The first thing you want to do is figure out how long your borders need to be, and that will depend on if you have a rectangular quilt top or a square. And so what you want to do, we're going to do it differently than we do with regular borders. So you want to measure the top without borders. So I have this just as a mock-up. That's 40 inches on one side and 50 on the other. And let's say I'm going to put borders on that are going to be 10 inches. So 10-inch borders I'm going to put on this quilt. So when I am going to do mitered borders or mitered corners on my borders, we have to cut the length of the border to the length of this plus the width of the borders twice. So for example, if I'm going to put 10-inch borders, I need two borders long enough for the sides that are 50 plus 10 plus 10. So then I need at least 70 inches of border. And then I always give myself a few extra inches to have a little bit of wiggle room. So I would probably cut my length of the borders to about 74 inches. For the top and bottom, that would be 40 plus 10 plus 10. So that's 60 and 64 inches is what I would cut for my top and bottom. Now, if you're doing a square quilt, obviously all four sides are going to be the same length of borders. So once you have your borders cut to length, what you want to do, and I'm going to demonstrate with this border print. Mitered borders are essential for using border prints, and we have all these extra lines on it, so it looks like you did a lot of work for your quilt. So what you want to do now is take your quilt top. I have this little quilt top here I'm going to use for demonstration. So you want to take your border and you want to find the center. So I just fold my borders in half. I find that center, and then I'm going to do the same with my quilt. Find the center, and then I want to match these up. I put a little dot here to mark where my center is, and then I can take this folded center and just align those two, and then I pin this down. So I want to, before I do anything else, pin the borders to the quilt because we're not going to measure them. So we're just going to align them to the edges of the border. We're not going to measure and cut because we want to have that oversized on the edges. So I'm going to just pin and I'm going down on each side. You can decide how much you want to pin. And then what we want to do is make a mark, because when we sew these on, we're going to stop at a 1/4 inch from the edge of the quilt. And of course we can't see it because we want to sew on this side. Whenever you're doing a border print, you want to be able to see where that stitch line is going. So I like to just take a ruler and align it. So I have, this ruler will have a nice 1/4 inch line here. So I just align that 1/4 inch line with the edge of the quilt right here, and then I can fold my border down and make a mark right here on the edge of the ruler. So this is now essentially a 1/4 inch from that corner. So this is where I'm going to stop sewing, and I'm going to do that on both sides. So I place my ruler, the 1/4 inch line on the ruler is on the edge of the quilt, and fold my border down and make my mark on the edge. So this is my start and stop of when I'm gonna start and stop sewing. So I usually do that on all four sides. It's easier to do two sides and then do the other two sides. So I'm going to show you here where I've sewn on this side, this corner here. So I have sewn all the way down, and I stopped right here at the corner. I'm going to bring this up to show you. So you'll see my little blue mark, and that's where I stopped the stitching. And I did that on the other side too. I sewed all the way up to the blue mark and stopped stitching. So now we have, I'm going to remove my pins. Now we have this open like this, and we have a little 1/4 inch on each side of that corner. So now it's time to miter. So what we want to do is I flip my quilt over. and then take the edges of the top without the borders, and I just fold them together like this. So edge to edge, like so. So the borders are even, and this is just folded together, and we want to smooth this out. And you can easily see that blue mark here. This is where my stitch line, where I stopped stitching. So now the only other tool that you need a ruler with a 45-degree angle. So you can use anything that has a 45-degree line on it. So now we're going to make our stitch line that is going to do the mitered corner. So that's essentially going to be is going from this point 45 degrees out this way. If we do it this way, obviously we'll end up with a box corner. So we want to do it out away from the quilt, away from the quilt top. So what you want to do is take that 45-degree line. I align that with either this side. You can also align it with the edge of the border, but I like to align it with the edge of the quilt. Edge of the quilt here. So then I slide this over until the ruler, edge of the ruler, hits that mark where the stitching ended. So right here where the stitching ended is where I'm going to draw this line. So now I'm going to draw a line from where I ended stitching and down, out away from the quilt, this way. And before I do anything, I want to put a couple of pins in here just to hold it together, because I'm going to go ahead and take this to my sewing machine and just sew from the point. You don't want to sew through. You want to start right at the point where you stopped stitching before, put a couple of stitches in the same place, and then stitch to the end. And always when I'm doing mitered corners, I actually back stitch or kind of tack stitch on the end as well, because we're going to actually press these seams open when we do the mitered corner. So once you have that done on all four corners, it's time to sew that seam. Once you do the measuring, and I have gone ahead and done that right here, I'm going to show you exactly. Here's the one that was drawn. I drew the line and I stitched. And so before I do anything else, I always open this up to check if my miter turned out good. So I open it up before I do any kind of trimming and check it. And you know what? This is looking really good. What's fun with these border prints, it looks like you have a bunch of different fabrics because these are matching up. And then you have that gray here. And then you have that orange on the outside. So this looks good to me. So what I'm going to do now is just trim this down. So I fold this back up. You can do that with scissors, or you can do it with a rotary cutter. I'm just going to use scissors. So trim away the outside of the border. So just trim this to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can eyeball it. You can, like I said, use a rotary cutter if you want to be more precise. And then when we press this, we want to press this open. So this is going to be pressed open this way. And then your border will open up really nicely. And that's how easy it is to do mitered borders. I hope you enjoyed seeing how easy it is to create mitered borders on your quilt. And so now it's time to put it into action and try it for your next quilt. Thank you for watching.